Before we begin, please encourage us by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Your support truly keeps us motivated and helps us create more videos. It happened almost 10 years ago. At the time, my boyfriend and I had been together for quite a while. He was in his early 30s and had experience working in restaurants, while I was in my late 20s and working in an office. After years of working, we both began to feel burned out. We began talking about our future and realized that since my boyfriend already had strong cooking skills, opening a restaurant of our own could be a good idea. It felt like a more stable and meaningful path to take together. So, we spent the next few months saving money, scouting out potential locations, and carefully planning every detail. As they always say, location, location, location. Indeed, it is true, but not the way I expected as later we found out. We planned meticulously day and night. We wanted to make sure we got it right. Then, one day, while riding our motorcycle down a road, we spotted an old shack by the roadside. A handwritten sign in front read, "For rent." It caught our eyes, so we pulled over to check it out. My boyfriend immediately had an idea. He thought we could convert the shack into a fast roadside eatery. The location wasn't bad, not too busy, but not completely deserted either. We wouldn't need a huge investment to get started, and the space had the potential to become a cozy little eatery. The very next day, we contacted the property owner, a middle-aged man. He told us that the place used to be a tiny roadside eatery years ago, but the previous tenant had moved out long ago. Since the area wasn't very busy, the rent was low. Still, he pointed out that large trucks often passed by during the day. We didn't think twice. We agreed to rent the place on the spot. With truck drivers and nearby workers frequently on the road, we believed the location had real potential. After signing the lease and paying the deposit, we got to work right away. The very next day, we cleaned the entire space, gave it a fresh coat of paint, added better lighting, and fixed it up to make it look inviting. We brought in tables, chairs, and cooking tools, mostly secondhand to save on costs. We set up the kitchen in the back. It was small, but had everything we needed to get started. When we finally finished setting everything up, my boyfriend and I stood back and looked at what we had created. We could hardly believe it. The dream we had worked toward for so long had finally come true. Then came the grand opening day. To our surprise, the response was overwhelming. Customers poured in nonstop, cars, big trucks, all pulling over to eat. The place stayed packed from morning to evening. We were exhausted, but filled with an indescribable joy. We hadn't expected things to take off so quickly. During that first month, our business was booming. We even started seeing regular customers, locals, truck drivers, and construction workers who stopped by for a meal. We opened the restaurant every day from early morning until early evening. All the fresh ingredients we prepared would always sell out completely before closing time. But after the first month passed, we began to notice that our customers were gradually decreasing. On some days, we were able to sell foods before the early evening, but on other days, we couldn't sell everything. And sometimes, we were left with a surprising amount of unsold fresh ingredients, something that had never happened before. It was puzzling because we hadn't changed anything. The taste, the portions, everything was the same. We couldn't figure it out. Was it just the initial buzz dying down, or was there something else going on? We started brainstorming ways to keep our business going. One idea was to change our business hours. Instead of opening in the morning and running through the evening, we decided to start selling at noon and stay open late into the night. One reason behind this change was the road we were on. It often had many large trucks passing by during the evening and into the night. We figured that shifting our hours to match that traffic might help bring in more customers, and after adjusting our business hours, things did pick up a bit. It wasn't as busy as during our first month, but it was definitely better than when we were open in the early morning. Not long after we extended business hours into the night, my boyfriend started noticing something strange. Around midnight, just before we closed, he would often spot a man standing on the other side of the road. The man was thin, wearing a faded long-sleeve shirt and old trousers. He never came over to order food. He never said a word. He just stood there silently, staring at our shop, and then he would disappear. We were both a bit unsettled, but we didn't think much of it at first. We assumed he might be a homeless man sleeping nearby, or maybe just a drunk. But what was even stranger was that no one ever saw where he came from. No one ever spotted him walking from a distance. He would simply appear out of nowhere and vanish just as mysteriously without anyone noticing. There were nights when I tried to keep my eyes on him, determined to figure it out. But each time I glanced away, even for a moment, he'd already be gone. It happened over and over. Then, one night, while my boyfriend was closing up, he suddenly felt like someone was watching him, closely. He looked around, scanning the street. That's when he saw that same mysterious man again. But this time, he wasn't across the street. He was right in front of our shop, only a few meters away. He was so startled, he dropped the spatula from his hand. Because of how close the man was, and with the shop lights shining, he got a good look at his face. His skin was pale. His eyes were sunken, dark, like he hadn't slept in days. And his lips, they were a deep bluish purple. They locked eyes for a moment before the man slowly turned, crossed the street, and disappeared into the darkness. After he vanished, I rushed over to my boyfriend and told him I'd seen the man too. That incident really shook me. I started to feel scared and told my boyfriend I wanted to move the shop as soon as possible. I had a bad feeling and didn't want to see that man again. But he was still hesitant. He didn't want to lose the steady sales we were finally starting to regain. He tried to reassure me, saying it was probably nothing, just a homeless person passing by. That night, there was a heavy downpour. The street was wet and slippery, and only a few customers had stopped by. We were both feeling discouraged and decided to close up early. As the clock neared midnight, we began packing. While I was cleaning up, I happened to glance across the street, and what I saw made me freeze. That same mysterious man was there again, standing in the usual spot on the other side of the road, silently staring at our stall while we packed up. My boyfriend noticed the look on my face and followed my gaze. He saw him too. He was about to tell me to just ignore it and keep packing, when, suddenly, something unexpected happened. The man started walking, slowly crossing the street, heading straight toward us. And then, the unthinkable happened. A massive dump truck suddenly came speeding down the road. We both froze, mouths open, ready to shout a warning. But it was already too late. The truck slammed straight into the man. I nearly screamed. There was a loud cry of shock. My boyfriend was just as shaken. The spot where we witnessed the incident was very close, so we saw the entire thing clearly and in full. But what happened next caught us completely off guard and turned our emotions upside down. The heavy dump truck that had supposedly struck the man had already passed and kept driving as if nothing had happened. There was no sound of impact, no crashing noise, nothing. And once the truck had disappeared from view, my boyfriend and I turned back to look at the road. What we saw next gave us goosebumps all over our body. The mysterious man was still standing there, right in the exact same spot. But now, he looked absolutely terrifying. His face was covered in wounds, and his body full of gashes. as if he had actually been struck violently by the truck. His eyes, empty and full of pain, just stared blankly. Then, slowly, he began to step forward and cross the road again. Both my boyfriend and I were paralyzed with fear. We wanted to run, but our legs gave out. We couldn't move. The man took only a few steps. And then, right before our eyes, he slowly faded away into thin air. Seeing that, my boyfriend and I had had enough. We immediately jumped on the motorbike and sped off from the shop without once looking back. After that incident, we decided to give up the shop. It was heartbreaking to close it after all the effort we'd put in, but we were too frightened to ever return. Even so, we couldn't stop wondering what exactly we had seen. So my boyfriend decided to call the landlord, the man we had rented the food stall from, to ask about the history of that spot. At first, landlord seemed reluctant to say anything, but after my boyfriend kept pressing him and explained that we had no intention of coming back and promised to keep it a secret, only then did landlord finally agree to share the truth. He explained that he used to sell food at that very location himself. He ran a roadside food stall for late-night customers. Business had been going well, until one tragic night. A customer parked on the opposite side of the road and began crossing over to eat at his stall. Tragically, that customer was struck by a speeding 10-wheeler truck and died instantly on the spot. From that night on, it seemed the man's spirit continued to linger there. Both landlord and his employee had encountered the ghost multiple times, and eventually, neither of them could bear to keep selling food at that location. As for why the landlord hadn't said anything from the beginning, it was because my boyfriend had told him we'd only be running the business during the daytime, so he figured there wouldn't be any issue, and chose not to bring it up. After hearing all of this, my boyfriend and I were horrified. The experience left us deeply rattled, and we were too scared to continue to run that roadside food stall again.